Welcome back, everyone, to the latest episode at Retail Trust of our For the Four webcast. Thank you very much for joining us and continuing to support our cause to create health, happiness and hope for everyone in retail. As we work through a second lockdown and all the pressures and changes to our lives that brings, many of us are spending more time at home than ever before. It is an absolute pleasure, therefore, to welcome as my guest today, Graham Bell, the CEO of B&Q, a business that, as an essential retailer, has been at the forefront of some of the most impressive innovations that have characterised the best of retail's response to the COVID crisis. These, of course, have ranged from huge changes in the way B&Q serves its customers to how it has sought to look after its most important asset, its people, in these most unprecedented of times. Meanwhile, Graham himself has been a fixture of the leadership of UK retail for almost 3 decades, with over 20 years as a member of the Kingfisher leadership team. Before B&Q, perhaps most notably, he was the figure that cemented Screwfix as one of UK retail's most successful multi-channel retailers. So I am delighted Graham has agreed to join us today to discuss all of that and more. Graham, a huge welcome to you.
Thank you, Chris.
Graham, I'd like to start, look, you know better than anyone that retail is a sector with change really right at the heart of its DNA. But with all your experience, are you able to put the scale of the transformation that has taken place in UK retail, and I guess particularly at B&Q in the last 8 months, into some sort of perspective?
I think it's really been brought home to us that we had a lot of elements of our future business plan phased for 3 years and 5 years. And the only way I can really put it, and some of those elements that we were looking to take 3, 4, maybe 5 years, all of a sudden, believe it or not, we've done some of them in months and some of them in weeks, just as the scale of how fast things change. And of course, big changes that we could never have predicted in the business, but also in customer demand. So I think the scale of change, I imagine, for all businesses at the moment, good and bad, have been to extreme levels, and the size, it just totally turns businesses upside down in their heads.
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard several times actually that this sense of the industry having to deliver 5 years worth of change programs in half a year. What's your sense of how the sector in general has coped, and what do you think are the sort of critical challenges it now faces?
Yeah, I mean, particularly talking about the kind of retail sector and probably more on the kind of DIY or homewares retail side of business, I think we've coped reasonably well. We've been very fortunate in the fact that we've been classed as essential retailers. And although that came with its problems and how we were satisfying the new demands, I think I'd rather be in this situation than have to be a retailer that had to close. And although it forced a lot of aspects onto you, I think we've coped really well in the fact that a lot of the relevant businesses have managed to find a way to deliver a service to their customers. They've managed to operate safely and adapt their processes, especially with the bulk and the cube of some of our products, been able to deliver to customers to their homes or get customers to pick up safely from car parks. So very innovative ways. And I think they put the customer at the front of it and really looked at saying, how do we service the customer with that big halo effect of doing it safely? So I think the whole retail business has adapted really well. I think the staff have adapted really well, and even the customers have. So from my point of view, it really does feel as an essential retailer that's been able to stay open. We've adapted well, managed to give the service and give it in a safe manner.
Has it changed the way, has it changed the relationship with the customer, do you think, in any ways?
You know, and we're talking to nearly every customer that comes in front of our stores now, online. There's a lot of special requests on deliveries. We can't just assume that you can deliver to someone's house. There's stages when you can't deliver into their house, so you're talking to people outside. We've got a lot of vulnerable people that need to be self-isolated, so we're going to take that into account. So I think it's a far more intimate relationship where people are being more open about their circumstances, and we're having to accommodate to that. So it leads to far more communication between the customer and the retailer.
And I guess the other part of that dynamic are your colleagues. do you think the last 8 months have significantly shifted the relationship and the dynamic between the business and those people working for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed. And you know, the same thing goes. Our colleagues, a lot of people have been coming in with missions, you know, whether they've been exceptional missions to repair something or just make something better so that they could stay at home, from families wanting to make their back garden safe to let the kids out in. And I think customers are talking to our staff and kind of outlaying the problem, and our staff are able to help more. Now, previously, we've had customers come in and ask for help for a specific element. I think what we're seeing now is a broad aspect of what they want to change and how they want to make things better. And our staff are getting involved in that, and it's very satisfying.
And has that altered the way that you need to communicate with colleagues?
I think what it has taught us, we need to communicate more. And what we have done throughout this pandemic, we've listened to our colleagues through People's Forum, listening sessions, communicating both ways, making sure that we understand what the staff and the colleagues' sentiment is about how they're communicating with the customers, elements of the business that we think we could improve. And I think whereas before, you know, maybe slightly ignorantly, we assumed that we were very close to the business. I think the huge step change meant we weren't as close to the business because things were moving so fast. And we had to have regular communication with, particularly in our stores, our store management and our colleagues. And we did that regularly, and they were helping us in a decision-making process. So it's definitely changed dramatically for us.
And I've been really interested in terms of that communication, at least what I can see of it. First of all, on the new marketing campaign, which I think is fantastic. Congratulations. But also, you know, conversations I've had with people internally at B&Q and Kingfisher, the wider Kingfisher family, that wellness and well-being are right at the heart of how you are operating, both with regards to your relationship with the customer, interestingly, but also centrally with your relationship with colleagues as well.
Yeah. Well, do you know this, Chris? Our colleague well-being really has been an agenda way back in 2019. We conducted a bit of a survey of our own staff, and we were quite surprised at some of the information we got back. And we had information that said 2/3 of all the colleagues we surveyed at some point in time had mental health issues. And that was a bit of a surprise to us. And that really woke us up to the fact that, look, this is not going to go away. It is part of everyday life. And I think as a responsible retailer, and I'm a great believer that, you know, it doesn't matter how great your stores, your products, your webs are, if you haven't got great staff feeling good about themselves, giving great service, you'll never deliver. And so we really thought it was something that we wanted to make a step change in. In 2019, we decided to get a gentleman called Dr. Chatterjee come to our conference and give a talk, and we gave everyone at a conference a book to really think about their own well-being. We engaged a company called Green Park to come in and do a complete audit stroke survey in our business, and said, you know, even inclusivity, diversity, but also the well-being of our staff, and really help us, because it was new charter territory for us. And we wanted to get someone in who, with a bit of experience, would help us. So really, before the pandemic, it was on our agenda to really work on this. I think, as I said earlier, what the pandemic has done, as all elements, we planned to do it throughout the next 2 years. It's accelerated everything. And I think the need for it was exposed even more. So it's always been something that's been on our agenda. And, you know, even throughout the pandemic, Andy Mote, our people director, did a wellness Wednesday. And I think it was opening up not just all of the board and the senior team to what he was doing, but also getting us connected in the reality of us understanding what mental health was and how we would approach it.
And are you able to see a clear link between the health, the happiness of the people that are working within the organisation and economic results for the business?
I think there's an element of our staff becoming ambassadors, and this was a self-evolving organic thing that we discovered, that not only were we helping our own members of staff and colleagues, but it has a huge impact on their families and their personal lives. And I think them coming in, being more positive, feeling better about themselves, really did move things on in the stores, and the stores were very positive in what we're doing. And as I said earlier, in communicating to them, they pushed us to doing some things, helping out more in the communities, highlighting areas where things that we could help on. I mean, the PPE stuff to the National Health was a no-brainer, but you look at some of all the other charities that we needed to help, and this really did give us an eyesight into all the different elements of things that were going on in our community through the colleagues in stores.
And I mean, what's interesting to me, it sounds like what you're saying is that you fundamentally believe that business has quite a significant role to play, I guess, not just in the economic recovery that's going to come, hopefully as we come out of lockdown in early next year, but also actually the health recovery, the public health recovery as well, and the way that we look after ourselves going forward generally.
I fundamentally believe in B&Q, and we actually talk to people about this. We know that if our staff are feeling great about their job, and we have some people who just have had an off day, and actually coming into work and doing something that they enjoy doing makes them feel better themselves. That passed on to customers, and customers saying to us that they come into B&Q and have an enjoyable experience. It's a small bit, but it's a bit that really helps. And I think we've got a duty of care. If all our colleagues and everybody, the 25,000 people that work for B&Q are feeling good about themselves, also understanding mental health issues and how they can help, that 25,000 are so connected to families, friends. It's a starting point, but it really will help spread. And I think if all retailers think the same, act the same, it really is a positive thing that can grow from the bottom up and may well meet some of the initiatives that we've got coming top down.
And of course, I guess it's increasingly important that customers understand and want to trade with businesses that are being seen and are actually doing the right thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, being a responsible business, it's not just about being a business that has everything in stock. It's how you do it, responsibly trading, where are you sourcing your products from? Is it an inclusive culture? Is there diversity in the business? Do you understand what's happening in the real world? And really understanding the diverse nature of your customers, but accepting all the moral beliefs and actually respecting them. But also, that sustainability angle of being a sustainable retailer. I mean, we've looked long and hard in our products through sustainable forests. We look after all the products that we buy in packaging. How can we reduce it? We're also looking at how we reduce our carbon footprint. We put photovoltaic on all the roofs of our DCs, and they can run nearly 50% of all the power is self-supplied now. We've got the biggest fleet of vehicles that are running gas in the whole of UK for retailers, keeping our emissions down. We're also looking at how we take all the waste products from our stores and we bale up the cardboard and the plastic and sell it to recycle it. And then we heat our buildings by using bio heaters that we burn some of the waste in. And these are the sort of things, I mean, not only are they great business sense, but it's actually leading to saying, how do you be a responsible retailer that your customers can judge you in the modern day? And it's a huge element. So it's people, how you can be inclusive, also about the environment. They all go hand in hand for me.
How does an organisation like Kingfisher B&Q square the need to make profit with the need to do good, play its part in society, have strong CSR, and how does it balance those narratives when it's talking to the market?
Look after our shareholders, look after our colleagues, and then give back to our communities and really be a responsible retailer. So I do think it can be squared off, because I think if you make profit and you satisfy it, the more you can invest and look at improving the environment and invest in it in the future.
And with the polarisation in the market of those organisations that are still doing well, and your results speak for themselves, and obviously there are large numbers of retailers who are struggling at the moment, is there more pressure on organisations like yourself to take a lead at the moment, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and I think what we've got to be seeing is it's that fine balance, and I'm very aware of it, because I do get on some of calls with other colleagues on groups and government help groups that said, and I feel sorry for them because their businesses is closed. So it's kind of me not taking advantage of the situation, but using it so that I can be responsible. And, like we took the decision to pay back the furlough money because it was put there and we needed it when we were closed, but it allowed us to make the decisions to get the business back up and running again. And obviously when we did well and got some money back in, we decided to repay it so that it could be paid out where it was needed. We're not taking advantage of the retention schemes or keeping people on. So I think we've got to do that fine balance and say, look, I think you're going to leave legacies here, and this pandemic is going to make people look back and say those are the retailers and the people that acted responsibly. And I think customers, as ever, are going to look back at businesses. And I think you've got a brand reputation, and I think you can only do one thing and hold your head up high and always think, are we doing the right thing for our customer, our shareholders, and retail in general, and not take advantage of a situation? Because if you were standing in someone else's shoes, I sure as hell wouldn't want it happening to me.
No, quite. So 8 months, you delivered almost 5 years of innovation in a short space of time. You're working through a pandemic. You're having to lead at an industry level to leave the kind of legacy that you believe the business needs to and you want to. The pressure on the leadership, on yourselves and on the leadership team must have been extraordinary over the last 8 months. How have you coped and how have you changed your style in order to be effective?
Yeah, I think, as you said, in my early days when I was at Screwfix, it was all about building a leadership team that was very close. And that was always about getting to know each other. And that took years of building the trust and the rapport with each other, really helped you. This happened very quickly, and you're right. And I think the upside is we've been so close and communicating and spend a lot of time. We've gotten to know each other well. So the kind of core leadership, which is the directors and the director ofs, and the leadership elements have been working very closely. So something that was going to take us about 2 years has got together in a year. However, we obviously had some real dark moments when we were closing the stores and stress and the strain. And if ever, I've always found the stresses of running a business, it's business. It's about sales. It's about problem of your people. This time we had the added element that added a real intensity into your decisions, where it questioned a lot of the things that you had as set basis of how you made your decisions for. So we had to put safety of colleagues, customers, and the population first. And that made us really think differently, challenged all the things we believed in before. And it really did put a lot of pressure on us. And I think what we did find, although we were working really long hours, it was about having set time out. Making sure that we didn't have right, it's Friday, 3 o'clock to 4, everyone, believe it or not, you just have time out, get out for a walk, do something. I mean, I'm quite fortunate here. I've got a couple of dogs. I love to get out with the dogs and take them for a walk in the nearby woods and just switch off, and it's very good to get outside. And I think it's great to see, this may sound a bit soppy, but you get closer to nature. You start looking at the trees. I was convinced there was more birds around at the time, squirrels. So I think it's just, call it a distraction, or, just getting something you can focus on different does reset you. And I think family and friends, I had 4 daughters and my wife in the house at the time when I was locked in here. So I very often got brought back to reality on something that was not very important in the grand scheme of the world. It was very important in the household at the time. So I think, but also being open and honest with your family and friends and say, I'm just really tired at the moment. And they say, well, I'll move that meeting back a bit, have a half hour, go and do something. So I think it's just being open about it, but you've got to have it on your agenda. Because if I didn't put it in my diary, what you end up with is a 7 to 8 o'clock at night day. So put something in your agenda.
And look, finally, Graham, we're delighted that we're working so closely with you and the organisation, and it's such a strong partnership. But it would be great to get a sense of how the work of the Retail Trust is landing at B&Q and how it aligns with your own values and the values of the organisation.
Yeah, I'm actually embarrassed to say, Chris, I mean, I didn't personally realise all the elements at the Retail Trust that, and we've had lots of examples throughout this. Next year, we're going to have Andy Motor, People Director, and Paddy, our Digital and Customer Director. They're going to be ambassadors for you in our business. And I think the big thing it's taught us is that wide agenda that you have that is really focused on helping people has given us a resource and a library of information and resource and people that can help us, that when we were quickly forced into this, we immediately found an ally that could really help us, and also we could refer to people. So, and I think with the mental health and well-being of colleagues and people being so important in the future, we do see you as a key partner in making us not just make this the right thing to do, but actually helping us evolve it into something that becomes a bit like a second nature. We've always said customer service is a great thing in retail. We can't give great customer service if people are not feeling well. How do we make people feel well? We can do a lot of sales, but there's often occasions we need help. And sometimes people just need to hear it from someone else. And that intervention from a third party carries a lot of weight in a discussion. So I think what we found with the Retail Trust, whether it be people in all avenues, they're a retail colleague, they get access to all the elements that you deliver, whether that be in their well-being, whether it be something to do with their personal family at home, whether it be with their finances, or even problems they have at work. They feel as if they've got a third-party ally that can really help them. And that's been a real boost to us. So I think it's something, you're going to recognise that we're definitely going to be promoting the Retail Trust a lot more. And not just from a point of view that we want to promote it. It really has been something that's helped us through this pandemic.
Fantastic. That's simply wonderful to hear. Thank you, Graham. Graham, thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of everyone at the Retail Trust and everyone who's listening, I just wanted to say how proud I think everyone at B&Q should be to their response to the pandemic over the last 8 months, the changes that you've put through, the results that you're having, and also the massive focus you've had on the health and the well-being of customers and colleagues. I think it's something that all of UK retail should be proud of. So congratulations and thank you, and carry on the good work.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.